I paid too much for it because I had to pay somebody to buy it in Kentucky to ship it to me. So I ended up paying like close to $80 by the end of the day. Because
holy cow. Okay.
I don't know if the guy had never shipped a bottle before. Luckily, I'm doing
Dude,
bottles.
You know me. You know I'm like right here, right?
I know.
The day has come and a design for the t-shirts for our Patreon supporters has finally been chosen. I want to thank everyone for their patience, especially to those who have been supporting the show since we began this campaign. Your t-shirts are long overdue, so I'm going to try and expedite this process as much as I can. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and was able to catch the Wild Turkey episode with Eddie Russell. We're going to be doing an end-of-the-year wrap-up community roundtable in a few weeks, so make sure to join us to see if we think 2016 was a year of dud bourbons. If you want to listen to the entire unedited and uncut episode, make sure you support the show on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit.
Play Whiskey Wednesday, Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you can win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single-barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixirs Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com. Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order. Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof, and the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com, and you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long. Welcome back to an episode of the Bourbon Pursuit Podcast. Kenny here tonight with the third round table we've been doing. This is always a fun little thing where we get some of the top bloggers around here and we kind of just chit chat. You know, it's nothing that is, it's a semi-set agenda. This is all happening on YouTube Live right now. We've got 21 viewers right now. I think we'll probably get up to around 50 at some point, but it's a way that we want people to be involved. So people that are on chat right now, I encourage you to ask questions and answer our questions, and we'll give you shout outs during this whole entire thing. So let's go ahead and do our usual roll call. So of course, Kenny from Bourbon Pursuit here, and I'll move it over to Blake right now.
I'm Blake from Bourboner.com, filling in from Ryan tonight. He has I'm just kidding. Bourboner.com, the blog, and probably the release maps you're tired of by now and you hate, and also the Bourboner Friday wrap-up emails.
I'm Nick from Breaking Bourbon, breakingbourbon.com, known for release calendar reviews and articles.
And I'm Jordan, also from breakingbourbon.com.
Awesome. Well, so we got that. So I guess it's let's go ahead and just give a quick shout to what we're drinking on right now. So I just went to the bar, just grabbed something real nice and easy. So I got a Stag Junior, 128.7 proof. What are you guys sipping on right now?
I'm drinking Bulleit barrel strength. I've been on a Bulleit kick lately, so there's a post coming next week about the history of Bulleit. It's not the actual bottle. I did a bottle split, so this is my half that I have left.
I'm drinking an Old Forester 1920, the third installment in the Whiskey Row series. Their highest proof, and just getting to know it. Pretty good so far.
I'm drinking a Big Bottom small batch single barrel. So this is a Sorcerer distiller out of Oregon. Really, really great. This is actually a fantastic little distillery. So looking forward to a lot of their stuff that they're starting to distill.
Okay, awesome. So I guess that we'll kind of lead that into a first question. I actually posed the wrong first question in the chat, but since we are drinking, I guess this is something that was actually asked by Max Gordian on the Bourboner Facebook group, and he said, how long do you usually let your bourbon breathe after you pour a glass?
I've actually gone back and forth on this. I usually like to, well, maybe because I'm just impatient, but take the first few sips within the first few minutes, and then it's funny how, and I don't know if it's based on the mash bill or distillery, but there's some bourbons that you let sit for 30 minutes. They really do change in flavor. If I'm doing a review, I like to do a little bit of both. I'll try it out of the bottle and kind of review, do notes, let it sit, try it again. And maybe the next night I'll just pour it and let it sit for 30 minutes. 30 minutes seems to be my max that I can go without trying to drink. So I don't know if that's just a personal, really that's the time limit, or if that's just as long as I can wait on a table before I have to drink it. So that's what I try to do.
That also leads into the 15-minute reviews that Blake always likes to post on the Facebook Live.
I actually make everyone sit there and wait for the 30 minutes while I don't say anything. Hey guys, we're just going to sit here and let this open up. So hope you enjoy.
So I'm kind of with Blake on that one. I like to, especially when I'm doing a review, the first time I like to just pour it and taste and sip it. My thought is half the people reading will probably be going out to the store to buy one, but the other half might be at a bar. And when you order bourbon at a bar, you're probably not going to sit there for 30 minutes. You're just going to start drinking it, right? So I want to taste what they're going to be tasting. And then, if I'm at home, then, and not reviewing a bourbon, yeah, I'll let it sit for 10, 15 minutes, but that's usually some just shooting the shit with other folks around me.
Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I would say probably a little bit of the same. You always tempted to kind of try it right out of the bottle, right as you pour it in the glass. But it does change over time, and depending how deep the pour is or what you're up to at the time, it can take 30 minutes sometimes to drink a bourbon. When I'm reviewing something, always use a Glencairn for reviews. Although I often drink I'm drinking from a rocks glass right now, which is just I guess more of a casual experience for me. But yeah, that airtime sometimes is helpful. I've also noticed that, a lot of bottles seem like that first pour is like the worst pour. And then once you get into it a week or a couple weeks later, it tends to be a little bit better, a little more mellow. Sometimes there's a little bit too much alcohol in that very first pour out of the bottle. It's a little too tannic.
Yeah, I'm kind of with, so in the chat, Tyson's Toy Channel said about 5 seconds is about how long. And I'm kind of with him on that. It's very hard for me to just pour something and then walk away. Definitely, if I'm drinking something, I usually just pop it open, pour it in there, and then it takes literally about 10 to 15 seconds before it hits my mouth. But I will say that I have noticed that, the flavors in a bottle always change. One thing that always springs to my mind was the 2015 William LaRue Weller. I remember the first time I opened it and popped the top, put it in the glass, and then tried drinking it. I hated it. I thought it tasted like black licorice. I was so mad because I was like, I finally got this William LaRue Weller, and it's the worst thing I've ever tasted. and, you know, got down a few pours and then kind of just let it sit for 3 months, 6 months, and then tried it again. It was a completely different bourbon at that point. So now it turned into one of the better ones, but there is definitely some truth to the myth of actually letting your bourbon breathe for an extended period of time.
For sure.
I think it may have something to do with proof as well. It seems like the higher proofs, either, you know, they kind of do this, because I've had some lower proof bourbons that I've tried a year or two after I opened the bottle, and they've been pretty good. But I've had some higher proof ones that I let sit for a year and a half, 2 years, and they actually have gone bad or just way too oxidized. I'm sure there's some kind of science behind that, but as for the actual
guys
science,
at Bourbon did a test about this not too long ago.
I know I can't put my bourbon in a windowsill, because that's going to destroy it right away.
No, it was pretty consistent with those 1/3 fills, though, and that was a low proof. That was Weller Special Reserve. Those 1/3 fills tended to be the best ones, not always unanimously, but they were up there. In fact, we just had some Sazerac 18. I want to say it was like maybe a 2013. It's been about 2 inches in the bottom of the bottle. Belongs to Eric, the third guy of the Breaking Bourbon team here, and it was phenomenal. I'll tell you, drinking that next to this year's Sazerac 18, it was two totally different ryes. It just so much better. The older one was so much better.
No, I think you guys, everybody kind of beat that horse to death about Saz, so we won't do that. If anybody here is listening wants to learn more, go and check out pretty much every one of these bloggers' pages. They'll go ahead and make you realize that you're going to pay too much for something new. Go ahead and spring for something that's pre-2016. So another question that we kind of had lined up here is, what do you think is the cheapest bottle worth having? And I'll go first, because at least around here in Kentucky, we're spoiled. And then we've got a few people that already chimed in about this. And I got to go with what David Goth, Jamie Albrighton, Greg Ponder, and then also Tyson's Toy Channel. So 3 of these people said the Heaven Hill 6-year and 6-year bottle and bond.
Yep.
It's a super, super cheap. Like, we're talking $15, especially around here. And it's a Kentucky only thing. And the other one is the Old Fitz bottle and bond. So both of these are Kentucky only releases, and both on the super cheap side. You know, oddly enough, both coming from Heaven Hill, it definitely, I really like it, only just because having something in 6 years. I mean, hell, most craft distilleries that are pushing something out, they're barely pushing 4 years, and they're talking $50, $60, $70 a bottle. So something that's like this, it's kind of hard to argue with. But I'll push it over you all and what you guys think is the best bottle worth having, or the cheapest bottle worth having.
Yeah, I got to say I agree with that. In fact, I just stocked up on a few of those. Jordan was down in Kentucky, and that's the one thing I wanted. Drank through the bottles I had pretty quickly. But geez, I think we paid $12 for it, and you can't beat it. It's kind of like a gift to Kentucky, or to anyone that wants to visit Kentucky. But you know what's more, I think, readily available, the Evan Williams bottle and bond. That's kind of a nice consolation prize. You know, if you're you don't have access to Kentucky, it's about $15. We'll look for the white label, and usually you're not going to go wrong with that. Pretty versatile. You can mix it, sip it, whatever you want.
Yeah, definitely going to agree with Nick. That Heaven Hill bib is so hard to beat, especially for the price. And then also, and I might be the oddball out on this one, I kind of like, the shirt Nick's wearing. I like Mellow Corn. It's cheap, but it gives you like this different flavor profile. And it's good just for something different without breaking the bank by any means. So that's, that's between those two. I'm going for a cheap whiskey. It's going to be Mellow Corn or a Heaven Hill bib.
Now, before we kind of go to Blake right there, I want to kind of touch on Mellow Corn a little bit, because I've always resisted it, because everybody that says they've tasted it says it's literally like taking a spoonful of like corn, literally like canned corn, and trying to drink it, right? And but I also saw somebody on one of the sites that they were trying to find some stuff that was I don't know, who's it come from now? Is it come from Heaven Hill, or where's it come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's still a Heaven Hill brand.
Okay, but maybe it was another DSP before then, but they were trying to find something that was distilled prior to then. Apparently, it tasted change for some $10 bottle at some point.
I guess maybe it's corn. It's almost 100% corn whiskey. So
You got
$100. It's
you got to like the
Probably.
flavor profile. It's a different flavor profile, but not a lot quite like it.
Mo corn that they used in the 60s was way better than the Mo corn today.
that's it. Like that was the special flavor. Adam.
Yeah. Well, I hate to give Heaven Hill all the credit for the bottom shelf bourbons, but J.W. Dant is kind of my go-to for a bottom shelf. Their bottled and bond version I used to be able to get I probably still can. I just haven't needed because I bought basically a gallon's worth for at one point. The big, huge plastic bottles, and it's just really good bourbon. I actually did it in a blind tasting with, I did the J.W. Dant, Elijah Craig, the 12-year when it was still the 12-year age dated, and then Elijah Craig 18-year. And actually, I think there was 18 people in the blind tasting, and like 40% of them picked the Dant as their favorite. And nobody had it as their third. So it was either one or two in everyone's lineup. Now, you could just say that it's kind of got this weird profile. And while everyone says they like older bourbon, of woody taste when they're tasting it blind, but it's just a really good bourbon no matter how you look at it. So they have a really good one. Barton used to, whenever it was age stated, I think was really good for that bottom shelf price. But if I'm looking for plastic bottle bourbon, J.W. Dant.
That's where it is. It's not too bad. It's a good one. So we had a few other kind of ones that chimed in. It's kind of surprised to see this one. So the Speakeasy Wisconsin said Fighting Cocks. I never would have thought about that one.
All right.
Whiskey Zealot said E.H. Taylor barrel proof. So apparently like $100 bottle is cheap to him, but
it's all relative.
It's all relative, right? But I mean, there's a lot of people that said Mellow Corn, single barrel Evan Williams. So yeah, it seems like there's a good consensus about a lot of that stuff that was happening. So kind of on the idea of what's happening in regards of the holidays coming up and cheap bourbon, we all have family members, and a lot of them they think they're into bourbon or they're getting into bourbon, whatever it is. But do you get some of your really good bottles and actually bring them to like Thanksgiving and Christmas and the holidays? Or you're like, well, I'll just bring the Lot B and tell them that's Pappy.
I'll go ahead. So
go ahead, Joe.
I won't. I mean, knowing like friends and family, unless it's like, really good bourbon drinkers, I'll leave my stuff at home and just set myself a price limit. Like I'll go to the store, I'll, set a $60, $70 price limit and buy like a nicer bottle to bring, and they're not going to know the difference, right? I'm going to enjoy drinking on it. I don't need to worry about like drinking out my really good stuff with them not appreciating it, and everyone like wins, right? So maybe a bottle of Blanton's, bottle of E.H. Taylor single barrel, something like that, something that they're probably not going to have by any means at their home bar, but they're still really going to enjoy. Call me greedy. That's okay.
Yeah, I go back and forth on this one. Last year, we were out of town for Thanksgiving, and I did bring in a box with like that year, or the 2015 Four Roses limited edition small batch, a Lot B. I think I brought a Cured Oak, and most of my family aren't real like aficionados, so I could have brought J.W. Dant and they wouldn't have known the difference. So, I kind of go back and forth. Yes, I like to share it with everyone, and we ended up like polishing off a bottle of Lot B that night. But then it's kind of like your fourth or fifth or drink of the night shouldn't be a really expensive bottle, because you're like, oh yeah, this tastes sweet still, so it's good. So while it is fun to share those bottles with people, like I never sit at home and just drink a really expensive bottle by myself, just be hanging around the rest of the night. Maybe you start with the Van Winkle or Four Roses, but then you kind of move on to just the regular Buffalo Trace or something like that. So kind of nice to have that smorgasbord of stuff where people are like, oh, I've never tried any in this box, so I'm going to try a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and go through as the night goes. But the night ended with making a brisket sandwich with Krispy Kreme donuts as the bread. So there wasn't much bourbon being really enjoyed by the time we got to later in the night.
There you go. Yeah,
Thanksgiving leftovers at its finest.
I kind of do the same exact thing with my family. I bring a box of bourbon. That's kind of typically what happens in the past few years. Now I'll go to the basement. I'll probably get 7 or 8 bottles and take them up to Ohio and something like that, and we'll sit around and sample them. So it is good to be able to share a lot of that stuff. But yeah, some of the unicorns and stuff like that definitely doesn't make it. And there was actually there's a pretty funny story that put in the chat. David Goff, he said that I brought a 2006 Pappy Van Winkle 20-year to a derby party in 2007. Saw some people mix it with Coke, and then I just slowly removed it from the table.
I think that's, I don't think that's like selfish or anything either. I think if you're with a crowd that's going to be pretty much mixing or isn't going to, enjoy it or isn't going to get what, you might get out of it knowing what it is, I don't think you're doing anyone any good. In fact, I've shared with people, some better barrel proofs, Stag and Handy and things like that. And, I think they weren't ready because to them, it was just too much. It burned and then wanted to, just fill it with ice. And not to say that's not okay. Certainly, use ice if you want to. I think the idea there was they just didn't like it and they were trying to power through, what are really a couple of great whiskeys, so you depending on the crowd, if you got a crowd that's going to appreciate it, you're going to maybe bring a couple of those. But if it's, a bunch of people that are going to be mixing and that kind of a thing, certainly you're going to bring a different selection to that get together.
Tyson's Toy Channel said Eagle Rare and Buffalo Trace store picks, pretty much anyone can appreciate them, but you're not going to get mad if they mix them with Coke.
Exactly.
True story.
12 used to be my go-to for that. I'm like, it's a cool story. I'll tell people it's the same Asheville's Van Winkle. I can still pick it up for $30 a bottle. No, and then it's like, oh, geez, 2015 hit, and all of a sudden, we can't mix this with Coke anymore. I got to be angry.
Good. So we missed one that was definitely in the last segment about the cheapest bottle worth having. I saw 2 people chime in saying that Old Granddad and Bonded is definitely having those in a cheaper scale. And definitely have to agree with there. So
Old Granddad 114 too, right? It's supposed to be ending.
Not super cheap, but good value for the money for sure.
Are you gonna start the rumor mill already?
That rumor mill was started a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it's from pretty decent source, actually, that is going to be coming off the table at some point. Sounds like they have a good amount of it. It's still going to see shelves for a while. And seems like people don't buy it. What I've bought is usually pretty dusty around here. I think I'm the only one buying it, to tell you the truth.
It's good.
Yeah. You heard it here first. Breaking Bourbon got the news straight from Fred No and said that.
So I guess if you're looking for something to kind of just have on the shelf and try it before it's all gone, try the 114. The other one is Wild Turkey Forgiven. So what you see on the shelves right now is probably the last of that's going to be happening as well.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I feel like that can be forgotten.
Wild Turkey Forgotten. The first batch was pretty good. I didn't try the second batch.
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon. If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription.
That'll kind of be a good lead into our next segment, right? So we've talked about the lower stuff, right? Now, there was another question that came out there and said, like, what's your favorite, like, because you know, the holidays are coming up and maybe somebody's asking for a good bourbon and they're like, I just want like a good, like $50 bourbon. So that kind of removes some of the lower stuff and removes pretty much like all the high-end limited options sort of stuff. So what's the $50 range? Like what's something around there that you see is something that's attainable?
I think that it depends what you want. You know, if you want something that's smoother and well balanced, I think Blanton's is going to be a pretty good option. Of course, that's a little bit more than 50, but it's in that range. If you're looking for barrel proof, you got a couple more options. And again, depends on kind of what you're going for. Maker's Mark has a good flavor profile, but that's going to be different than, Booker's, for example. So you get a bunch of those. One that we've yet to find anybody who didn't like it, Knob Creek single barrel. In fact, that's going to be a little under 50. So you'll get out the door usually with tax and everything, for less than 50. That's one that seems to be something everybody likes. And they're always a little bit different because it is a single barrel, so you have that uniqueness to it as well. Hard to not recommend that one if you're looking in that price range.
Yeah, I think everything Nick just said, if you're looking around 50, if you can get a Blanton's, always good. Right, depending on where you're located, huge swings in prices. So E.H. Taylor's single barrel, right? That's a good one. Some places overcharge, some people undercharge. But you can find in that $50 price range, and that's always a good one too. And that's, I think, both those. It's especially if you want to give a gift for people looking like around the $50 to $60 price range. Both of those actually present really well as a gift too, right? One comes in a really cool tube. If you get the Blanton's, if the store isn't taken out of the box, you get a really cool box, like little velvet bag inside of it. And those honestly are like my go-to bourbons. One, because they taste good and I'll probably end up drinking with that person. But two, they make like a really good gift. And if people aren't like super into whiskey, they just think you gave them like the coolest thing on earth, which is good. I mean, they taste great and it just makes a nice presentation.
Yeah, I agree about the presentation side. I love Booker's, right? Being able to have that as a good
deal.
Price range. And the presentation, I think, is there because it comes in a fancy box. It's got some sweet little label on it. It's got the sliding plastic front to it. And if you're kind of a noob to it, you think that you're getting something that's pretty high class. So sure, you spend a few extra bucks just for the packaging, but I definitely think it's the bourbon's not too bad itself either.
Yeah, I think also Stag Junior kind of gets lost in there because it's not Stag Senior. Well, and I guess it depends on where you are too, because prices can change. I like Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit. I think that's a really good one in that price range that doesn't get a ton of attention. And then Four Roses single barrel, it's a little bit under that $40 range, but it's still really good. And, it's kind of fun to chase the limited editions, but there still are a lot of really good bourbons sitting on shelves that get left. And in that $50 range, I'm sure it's probably a pretty big place for consumers because, you don't want to pick up somebody while of Jack Daniels. So you're like, $50, what's in here? And, there's still that. It is hard to beat Booker's though with the case, it is barrel proof, all that kind of stuff. So
that's good.
That's
still
probably one of my go-to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think. It's almost easier because I've had people ask me, they're like, I want to get my boss like a good $100 bourbon. What's a good $100 one? I'm like, well, that's actually kind of tough because there's really not a whole lot of bourbons on the market, really.
Like what's sitting on the shelf? Maybe a couple Orphan Barrels and Blood Oath, or at $100, there's not a whole lot. It's funny. I feel that question a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Sadly, nowadays with so many stores marking stuff up, it's actually people are like, oh, $100 must be good. It's like, that's actually like a $50 bottle. You just got ripped off, but that's okay.
Yeah. That's just Elmer T. Lee. It's not
Elmer T. Lee or Elijah Craig barrel proof or
Actually, the barrel bourbons are around and they're in that range. Sometimes cheaper, but I guess it depends if you like that flavor profile. I like it, so I've been a fan of these last few batches they've done.
Yeah, so there's some good ones coming in from people that are chiming in. So Mark Brown said the Willet Pot Still Reserve. Now it's a maybe because it's probably a little bit cheaper, but it definitely has the presentation of the pot still. You know, people get something out of that. Tyson said Stag Jr. You got Speakeasy said Rock Hill Farms. I personally hate the hell out of Rock Hill Farms, but this is me.
Really?
Literally, I'll tell you this. True story. So I probably got, my first bottle of Rock Hill Farms maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. And it took me damn near 2 years to finish the bottle because I hated it. It took me for some reason. It just
wasn't one that you came back to and thought, oh man, this has improved a lot.
No, it was for some odd reason. It was just bad. It was just bad to me. And the worst part is like, oh, it's such a cool looking bottle, right? It looks like it has a cool story to it, or it comes from a certain farm, and maybe they've got some family connect. There's nothing, right? I just wasn't a fan of it. So. And then, so Rick Cornell said 1792 foolproof. That's starting to make its way out in a lot of the markets right now. So I guess if
actually
you
that'd be my go-to if you can find it, but that kind of falls in that limited category.
Right.
And I am not a fan of that.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Not a fan at all. I don't know.
Still, why not?
No, and I think it was, I reviewed it maybe 2 months ago now, something like that. It just wasn't. It just was my type of tea. It was just hot, right? It was just. In my book, it was 1792 regular, just cranked up the heat, didn't really balance it out. And I heard that from a lot, I heard the same thing back from a lot of people. Going back, if you let the bottle sit for a really long time with some air, it mellows out a little bit, but it's still, again, my expectation is I shouldn't need to buy a bottle, crack it, pour some out, and then let it sit for a few months before I can really enjoy it. Right. So that was my experience with it. We'll see where it goes, but people tend to like. It's cheap. I think the foolproof is gimmicky, right? The name and the story behind it, but I get what they're doing. So we'll see.
Well, they're bringing out some things to the market, right? They're testing it. They're doing some experimentation. They just came out with the high rye. I haven't had a chance to try yet. Have you all?
I have not tried that yet.
No, not
the
at all.
high rye. Let me think about that now. Yes. Hold on. The high rye came out a few months ago, didn't it?
It was like 3 weeks ago.
I feel like I got that sample.
Yeah,
you got a sample.
Probably about a month ago. Maybe a little longer.
I need to go back and check my live reviews. Another one for Bourbon or Facebook group. No, I had it, and I do kind of remember that now. The high rye, because it's coming out at maybe $35 a bottle, and it sounds like they're going to have a pretty good stock or inventory of bottles. So it was really good. It's not like a Four Roses high rye taste, and it's not even kind of that spiciness you get from Old Granddad and that kind of stuff either. But it's definitely more mellow, but still really good and really good flavor. I'd recommend that one.
Good.
Yeah, everything in that line is pretty reasonably priced, it seems.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it seems like
I think they're
polarizing too. You seem to have people that really love them, people that hate them, and that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of comments.
I think that's what they're going for with the 1792 brand. It's like, well, at least from Sazerac's point is, okay, we've built up Pappy's. It's its own thing. Antique Collection, it's its own thing. Even, regular Buffalo Trace, Blanton's Eagle Rare, those are allocated in a lot of areas. So it's like, well, where do we go next? And, I think the redesign of the 1792 brand is a big part of that, just to build a good following, to keep putting out good releases at a decent price and, try to build those lifetime customers. So then everything they release for the next 10 years, we all buy and love. And,
So there's a few more people that kind of chimed in. I just want to hit on these ones real quick because I thought they were probably worth talking about, the good $50 bourbons. And Jordan, you had one right behind you, and somebody said the Smooth Ambler Old Scout 10-year. Now, is that a $50 one?
I got one. Yeah, just about maybe 52, 53, depending on where you buy it. But it depends on location, right? It's not, again, I've seen a price for 65. I think I got my bottle for like 52. That was just off the shelf here in PA. So it just depends.
Yeah. So I guess if you jump on the Smooth Ambler bandwagon, I'm sure that's something that everybody will kind of, you'll like. I think it's
get it while you can. Get it while you can.
Yeah, that's apparently right. So
that's so they say.
Yeah. Another one that I kind of like Travis Roberts talked about was Four Roses store picks. Sometimes they're just a little bit they're probably in the $60-ish, $65 range, but still, I think it's that's always a good one, especially when you get people that want to start really messing around with quite a different lot of bourbons, and you introduce them to Four Roses, and then you kind of tell them the whole story behind just the mash bill pieces. I think that's a pretty interesting one as well.
Kind of tough to go wrong with Four Roses. They do a good job over there. Mm-hmm. Those are always interesting, the variations of those single barrels.
And then there's two more that came in from Ray Perryman. He said Maker's Private Select, which is out in a few different places. It's kind of a hard one to come by, but if you've got liquor stores around you that had sort of the Maker's private barrel selections or private mixings or blendings, whatever you want to call them, that's worth trying. As well as he said Pikesville Rye, which I actually haven't had a chance to try Pikesville Rye, but I had nothing but people had positive response about it.
It's great. Definitely make sure to go, and I just say just go buy a bottle. It's fantastic.
Well, my wife works
that kind of.
I'm waiting for her to bring a bottle home for me for free.
Hell,
or do that. That works too.
Or not have a bottle yet, man.
Apparently, the closet's empty. So, so we'll move on to. I want to just do like one or two more questions because I know we're already running into like the 30-minute mark. So this question comes from Dan Hart, and it said, "What's the furthest you've traveled for a bottle, and what did you get?"
I don't think I've ever gone just for an individual bottle. Like if I'm gonna drive down to Kentucky, which I do 2-3 times a year just to load up on bourbon, I'll make sure to like stock up, right? So maybe I'll go to Willett just because I really want a store pick bottle, or bottles only sold in the gift shop. But then I'm going to load up my whole trunk full of bourbon too and like drive back 8 hours, right? So I'm going to make it really worth it. If not, I'm going to find someone and just pay them to ship it to me, right? I think that's a little bit easier nowadays, especially through all the Facebook groups. So the need to get in your car and go and just buy a bottle is a little bit less.
Yeah, so I've definitely driven a long way, but I'm trying to figure out, I've also had like other reasons to be places, and I've actually found bottles along the way. But for a specific bottle, I drove, and it was close to, I'm trying to not as bad by saying it was an hour one way, but it's probably closer to an hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes one way to pick up a stag last year. That's also kind of changed now too, because, I drove 90 miles last year or 2 years ago. Man, all my local stores are getting nothing. So I'd probably drive a lot further if I could find one this year. So about that 80-mile range is probably the furthest I've driven so far. And I did it once. And I don't regret it, but at the same time, I don't want that to be a trend either.
I've been about maybe about an hour and a half or so, usually around the, fall release time here in New York. Everything comes out a little bit later, but kind of to echo what Jordan said, he'll take the trips to Kentucky, loads up the trunk. That's for all three of us usually. And then I'm sure other people, this will ends up being a lot of bourbon. But locally, it seems like there's definitely a lot of local connections. So unless it's something that doesn't come into New York, can usually work with people here locally. And then obviously there's access online outside of the traditional channels that you can locate those other bottles that you're looking for that are a little bit tougher to find.
All right. Well, I think I might have the the story here then. So it was last year, 2015, and you guys aren't in Kentucky. You might think it's easy to kind of get your hands on limited stuff, and when BTAC and Pappy come around, this city turns into a freaking circus. And you've got people that drop off business cards saying that they're paying $1,600 for a 23, $900 or $1,100 for a 20. And basically you get priced out of the market pretty quickly. At that point, you've got you're down to about 3 or 4 stores that you can really shop at. And that's about it. Because any small independent stores kind of get taken over. That, and you're also dealing with the other 4,000 people in the city that are chasing after these bottles. So the next best thing we think of is, well, we're just going to look out of state. That's exactly what we're going to do. And so it was 2015, and I remember, I'm pretty sure I saw it on Blake's site with the Pappy map, right? And it said that it was like a week later, the Alabama ABC announced the day that it was going to start selling Pappy. I pull up Google Maps and I'm like, 5 hours. I could do that, right? So 5 hours to Birmingham, right? I was like, I could do that, right? So I did it, right? So it was it was Saturday night, it was about Saturday night, and I told my wife, I said, I'm gonna drive to Alabama and camp out for bourbon. And I was like, okay, well, let's just go ahead and do it. So I'm driving down there, and I'm like, oh, it's just Alabama. Like, these people probably aren't really into it or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm easily gonna be first in line. Like, I've got myself a 23. It's in the bag. And I pull up there. It's probably, it's 4 a.m. on a Sunday now. And I pull in, and I'm like, oh shit, there's already a huge line. I'm like 12th in line already. So that's when I realized, like, well, I'm already invested. I'm not going anywhere.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I was like, well, at this point, I'm sticking around, because they had quite a few different things. It's basically their whole limited allocation gets released on that.
Okay.
Day. And so I kind of hung around and met a few good people. So it ended up, stayed there that night, and then had to stay there Sunday night as well. And then they didn't open till 10 a.m. on Monday. So
holy shit.
Yeah.
Oh, so you were there for like 36 hours. I thought it was like you got there at 4 a.m. and then we didn't line the next morning.
Guys, I'm not fucking around here, okay? Like, all right.
Oh my word.
By the way, at that point, when I realized that I was like the 12th in line, I said, next year, this is not happening. Like, I'm never gonna do it again. And I definitely didn't go this year. But anyways, so I, oddly enough, as you could probably expect, they don't have a large allocation, right? Uh-huh. So by the 4th or 5th person in line, the Pappies were gone. I mean, that was 2320, 215s, and that was it, right? So I was just kind of struggling. I was like, oh no, what do I do? Thankfully, in front of me, there were a good amount of flippers. You know exactly, they were there. They were paid to stand there in line, whatnot, and they're scrambling. Like, they've got an envelope full of cash, and they have no idea what to buy because there's no Pappy available. And you've got the lady that's in charge of them all, like, saying, like, get the size 18 or something like that. And so they get a few things, and finally, like, I get in there, and I was able to snag the last William Blue Weller, so I got that.
Oh, okay.
Now, the other kicker here, what actually made the trip all more worth it, was they hand you a sheet, and it says, this is what you can buy. You can only choose one thing on this sheet, and that's all the allocated stuff. And then they have another side of the piece of paper that just has just regular bourbon. You can buy as much as you want. And one thing that me and a buddy in line noticed was that Old Forester birthday bourbon was on that. You can buy as much as you want. And of course, everybody in front of us, they had no idea what they were there. They had no idea what they were looking for. So me and him both grab a case, put it on the counter, and we're like, we're going to take this. So that
made it worth it.
Made it all worthwhile.
Yeah, it made it worthwhile. However, I feel bad for the other like 200 people that were in line behind me. Basically, me and like 2 other guys cleared out Old Forester birthday bourbon. Like,
it
wouldn't even.
They were just thinking it's just this Old Forester stuff. Nobody really wants it. That's pretty cool. I think they switched that to you need a Alabama license this year, maybe. Or maybe that was just Pennsylvania.
Wow. I mean, PA's done that for the last 2-3 years, ever since they. No, not even, because PA. No, you do.
I think it was just last year that they moved to a license.
License to pick up. Yeah. But you can designate. No, you can't. If you enter the lottery, you need to have a PA address, like a billing and shipping address.
Kenny, will you go on record saying that you found William LaRue Weller through the Bourboner Antique Collection release map?
I guess I'm like your one success story.
Yeah.
What's the royalty?
Everyone, I'm going to forward everyone a bunch of emails after this. Look who I.
Put it this way,
helped by that map.
Yeah, your royalty is I'll be your shipping mule now. So
no one's taking me up on the royalty of send me that spare bottle you found, but I haven't gotten that one yet.
and that's what Ben Jackson just commented. Said now Alabama, you actually have to show an Alabama driver's license.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. No, I emailed with Ben. He's a good guy. That's funny. Yeah, I thought they had switched to that.
Good
which
thing
makes sense. I mean. Yeah, because you don't want all these crazies like Kenny driving down from Kentucky just to steal cases of Old Forester birthday bourbon.
Is that a state-controlled state?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
They are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
Yeah, because and I think it was last year or the year before that it was supposed to kind of be like a little bit of a not top secret, but they weren't going to let it out that Pappy was being released on a specific day. And some guy finds out and posts it in the, Alabama Times or whatever it is. And then everyone picks it up and, then there's a line 48 hours before them actually releasing. But
yeah, that's how it works. The Speakeasy he says, I made the rookie mistake of road tripping from Wisconsin to Kentucky, thinking I'd find anything Weller, very special Old Fitzgerald, 12 year in the summer. And he goes, and I went home with Larceny and a 4 Roses. So this past week on Twitter, Carrie got kind of fed up, I guess you could say. And it's always been something I think in the realm of all of us bloggers, people that are into it. And put it this way, you go on a forum and you say, I'm in search of Pappy 10. You're just asking to get your ass chewed out. And so he finally put it out on Twitter and he asked Julian Van Winkle directly. And he said, do you consider Pappy 10 and Pappy 12, for old Rip Van Winkle and Lot B? And he responded back with thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a carefully crafted tweet, I guess.
To me, it was so funny because I feel like everything he puts out is just so we're happy to have you guys looking after our bourbons. Right. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, Carrie just got the fire of Julian Van Winkle. And it couldn't have happened to a better person because I'm probably going to rub it in 2 years. Remember that one time when Julian called you out on Twitter? But I mean, I understood his question, and that's what Julian, I don't think, got the question was, do you consider them a part of the Pappy line? So many people kind of confuse it at this point. Do you just consider them a part of the Pappy line? That's the question. But then the answer was just so much better of, well, just read the label and you'll find your obviously Carrie knows the difference. He was trying to get to a deeper meaning, but
yes,
it didn't get
that doesn't know.
Shut that down quick.
Yeah. So Julian replied back and it says, this is word for word. It says, read the label, period. 10 years.
I think there was a
10 years older Van Winkle, 12 years VWSR and period. Pappy is the brand name of 15/20/23. Period. That's it. It was there was no deeper explanation. No thanks for asking. We've had this conversation internally. No, it was just bam, read the label.
And then after that, he said, "Go buy Pappy maple syrup from Pappy and Company."
Hashtag Pappy Slap.
Is Pappy Slap trending on Twitter yet? Hashtag Pappy Slap.
I think they started it. I have no idea. All right. So with that, I want to say, guys, thank you again for coming on the show tonight. Let's close it out, kind of go around the table and tell everybody again how they can find you, how they can follow you, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So this is, again, Jordan from BreakingBourbon.com. You can find us at BreakingBourbon.com or at Breaking Bourbon on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for our newsletter, and follow our release calendar, which is updated almost daily.
Also, Nick from BreakingBourbon.com here. And Eric is the third member. He's not on the call, on the chat today.
Why doesn't Eric get any FaceTime? I feel like we've had a couple of these. Eric gets left out on all of them.
He's the web design guy, so he's got
the third guy. Does he actually exist, or are we
doing the web design? So we put in the time on the chats.
Yeah, they're all looking for an answer now. Eric, you just phone me in. I'll get you. Get you the link, Eric.
I'm Blake character.
I'm Blake from Bourboner.com, Bourboner.com on Twitter, Bourboner on Instagram, and then there's a Bourboner Facebook group. Feel free to join the newsletters, and if you join the Facebook group, you get to join in on a lot of live tastings. So that's where all the fun happens.
Awesome. And make sure you support the show on Patreon if you like what you hear. That's patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. Also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Bourbon Pursuit. And we'll keep pushing out new episodes every Friday. So hopefully you keep tuning in, and we're going to keep doing these community roundtables, I think, once a month. I think this has been a pretty good cadence there, and I think a lot of good banter back and forth. So again, appreciate you guys coming on, and we'll keep spreading our brand messages as far as we can to as many people as we can. All right, we'll see everybody next week.